Verify that cos squared a plus sine squared a is equal to 1 if a is equal to 90 degrees, a is equal to 180 degrees, and a is equal to 270 degrees. So let's start with a equal to 90 degrees. So we're going to swap the a for 90 degrees in cos squared a, and we're going to swap the a for 90 degrees in sine squared a. Cos of 90 degrees, so if we go to cos of a, we go across, and we go to 90 degrees and we go down, we get to 0. So cos of 90 degrees is 0. So we're going to have 0 squared, because remember it's cos squared 90 degrees. And sine of 90 degrees, we go to sine, we go across, we go to 90 degrees, we go down, we get to 1. So sine of 90 degrees is 1. So sine squared 90 degrees is 1 squared. 0 squared is 0, 1 squared is 1, so we end up with 1. Part 2, if a is equal to 180 degrees. So we swap the a and cos squared a for 180 degrees, and we swap the a and sine squared a for 180 degrees. So cos of 180 degrees, we go to cos, we go across, we go to 180 degrees, we go down, so we get minus 1. So cos of 180 degrees is minus 1. So cos squared 180 degrees is minus 1 squared. Then sine of 180 degrees, we go to sine, we go across, we go to 180, we go down, we get to 0. So sine of 180 degrees is 0. So sine squared 180 degrees is 0 squared. Minus 1 squared is 1, 0 squared is 0, and 1 plus 0 is 1. So now let's try a equal to 270 degrees. So cos squared a becomes cos squared 270 degrees, and sine squared a becomes sine squared 270 degrees. Cos of 270, we go to cos, we go across, we go to 270, we go down, we get to 0. So cos of 270 degrees is 0. So cos squared 270 is going to be 0 squared. Next we're going to get sine of 270. So we go to sine, we go across, we go to 270, we go down, we get to minus 1. So sine of 270 degrees is minus 1. So sine squared 270 degrees is minus 1 squared. 0 squared is 0, minus 1 squared is 1, 0 plus 1 is 1. Verify that cos squared a plus sine squared a equals 1 if a is equal to 45 degrees, a is equal to 120 degrees, and a is equal to 300 degrees. So let's start with a is equal to 45 degrees. So we change cos squared a for cos squared 45, and sine squared a for sine squared 45. We go to cos of 45 degrees, we go to cos, we go across, we go to 45 degrees, we go down, we get 1 over root 2. So if cos of 45 degrees is 1 over root 2, then cos squared 45 degrees is 1 over root 2 squared. Next we go to sine of 45 degrees. We go to sine, we go across, we go to 45 degrees, we go down, we get 1 over root 2. So if sine of 45 degrees is 1 over root 2, then sine squared of 45 degrees is 1 over root 2 squared. 1 over root 2 squared gives us a half, because 1 over root 2 multiplied by 1 over root 2, we do top by top, bottom by bottom. 1 by 1 is 1, and root 2 by root 2 is 2. So 1 over root 2 squared is a half. And likewise 1 over root 2 squared is also a half, and a half plus a half is 1. Now let's try a equal to 120 degrees. So we change cos squared a for cos squared 120 degrees, and sine squared a for sine squared 120 degrees. Now 120 degrees lies in the second quadrant. So we're going to do 180 degrees, take away 120 degrees, leaves us with 60 degrees. So we need to go to cos and 60. So we go to cos and we go across, and then we go to 60 and we go down, and we get a half. So cos of 60 degrees is a half. So we're going to have a half squared, but we're going to have a minus in front, because in the second quadrant cos is negative. Because in the second quadrant only sine is positive, so therefore cos is negative. Then sine squared 120 degrees. Again, we take 120 degrees away from 180 degrees, we're left with 60 degrees. And sine of 60 degrees is root 3 over 2. So we have root 3 over 2 squared, and this is going to be positive because in the second quadrant sine is positive. So we get minus a half squared, which is a quarter. And we get root 3 over 2 squared, which is 3/4. And a quarter plus 3/4 is 1. And now we're going to let A equal 300 degrees. So cos squared A becomes cos squared 300 degrees. And sine squared A becomes sine squared 300 degrees. So 300 degrees lies in the fourth quadrant. So we're going to say 360 degrees minus 300 degrees is 60 degrees. So we're going to have cos squared 60 and sine squared 60. So we need to go to cos and 60. So we go across from cos and down from 60, and we get a half. So we get a half squared, and it's going to be positive because in the fourth quadrant cos is positive. Then we're going to go to sine of 60. So we go to sine and we go across, we go to 60, we go down, we get root 3 over 2. So we have root 3 over 2 squared, and it's going to be a minus because in the fourth quadrant sine is negative. A half squared is a quarter, and minus root 3 over 2 squared is 3/4. 1/4 plus 3/4 is 1.